I saw other people grinding for what they wanted, it was no, I'm doing this just because I want it. They had to have it. Whatever they were doing to work to survive. It was no option. Like, I have to make it. I have to feed my family. This is not just a hobby. This is a hustle. Like, I'm seeing people on the corner selling t-shirts, or I saw people making a way out of nothing.
Whether you're looking for inspiration, guidance, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. This is Wisdom Stripes. Hello and welcome to Wisdom Stripes. My name is Meg Tuohey, and in today's episode, we're diving into creativity, resilience, and the kind of entrepreneurial wisdom that's born from doing the work, personally and professionally. Our guest today is RaQuita Weathers, professional photographer, creative strategist, and founder of Belle Rouge Photography, Flair House Creative Agency, and co-founder of Photography BAE Studios, based in Atlanta, Georgia. RaQuita has built a legacy of helping women of color show up boldly and unapologetically through visual storytelling. Her work is defined by authenticity, artistry, and a deep understanding of how images shape identity and legacy. With a master's degree in business and a background in corporate finance, RaQuita combines strategic thinking with soulful execution. From her early days hustling to build something out of nothing, to now leading creative projects, launching her book Moms in Focus, and raising a family, her journey is one of power, perseverance, and presence. Today, we're going beyond the surface to uncover the wisdom RaQuita has earned through risk, resilience, and real-life lessons. I'm honored to welcome RaQuita to today's episode. This is Wisdom Stripes, your no-nonsense, fierce fairy godmothers, turning pain and confusion into clarity and confidence. RaQuita, we always start with the same question for our guests. What wisdom would you like a listener to come away with today?
I love this question. First of all, thank you for having me. I would like to say, I believe complacency is a killer for creativity. If you are stuck where you are, if you are okay with being where you are, you can never get to where you want to be. And we've heard this before where, if we get used to the day and the day out, and if we're just okay with the norm, then that's all we're ever going to get.
Wow. So that's a big top line for us to dive into. Complacency is a killer, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's hard-earned wisdom, which means that you learned it. It was forged in fire.
Yeah.
Take us back in your timeline, take us back in your life to the moment where you understood that to be true.
I'm from a very small town in Louisiana. So I'm going to take you guys all the way back. I come from a small town, Vidalia, Louisiana. I love my town where I'm from. But I always knew, I didn't really see anything that I aspired to be there. I always knew I was going to live somewhere else. I always knew that I was going to be somewhere else in life. And this doesn't mean anything bad about where I'm from. I just always envisioned something bigger in life. And I knew in order to achieve it, I was going to have to leave where I was. I had to get away. So when the first opportunity for myself to get out of my surroundings came, that was college. So going to college for me was the first stepping stone. I knew just going away, anywhere to get me away from my town, that was the first step. So I went to college, right? And it sounds like a natural trajectory, but college was the first step. And that's where I met my husband. He's the one that first introduced me to traveling, and I never traveled anywhere before then, as in never left the state of Louisiana in my entire childhood. And people may look at that and be like, you're kidding, but it's a serious thing. So, and I might even just say even traveling alone would have exposed me to something so much bigger at such an earlier age. But because I didn't have those experiences as a child or as a young teenager, it made me want more. And because I always knew there was more in life, and you see magazines, you see television, and you can see you see celebrities, and you have this vision. You're like, there's more to life than what's here. That's what made me, I just had this hunger for wanting more than what was around me. So I was always at the top of the class, always at the, I was always doing the most with what I had. And when the first opportunity came to go to the next level, which I said was college, I did it. Went there, excelled, I did great. And I met my husband in college. We moved. I want to say we moved, but the opportunity to move from Louisiana arose, and we moved to Philadelphia. And I'm about to try not to make this a long story, but moving to Philly was the best decision I could have made, because it was there that I truly was first introduced to the idea of grind and hustle. I would have never really seen it had I not moved to Philly, because everyone, there's this Southern hospitality, there's this softness, there's this camaraderie, there's this niceness to the South. Granted, now let me be clear when I say that, because people from the South, yes, it can get rugged, it can get rough, we can call it very dangerous too down here. I'll say that. However, I think there was this hustle that I learned about Philadelphia when I moved there. And I'm like, I've never seen this before, because I was always like in this bubble. There's this bubble I lived in my whole life, right? But going to Philly, that's where I got the bug of entrepreneurship. It bit me in Philly. And I'm going to stop there because I know I'm saying a whole lot. But I got the bug of entrepreneurship in Philadelphia. This is when I was pursuing my master's degree, where I earned my master's degree. But the bug of entrepreneurship bit me when I saw other people grinding for what they wanted. It was no, I'm doing this just because I want it. They had to have it. They needed whatever they were doing to work to survive. It was no option. Like, this was I have to make it. I have to feed my family. This is not just a hobby. This is a hustle. Like, I'm seeing people on the corner selling T-shirts, or I saw people making a way out of nothing. And I'm like, oh, wow. So this is what it's like. Okay. And I don't want this to come off in a way of like it's simplistic, but to see the grind and actually see it from behind the scenes, and to then become a part of a person's team or something, to be a part of a mission and be like, wow. So this is what it's like to actually grind and hustle for something. And this is me still working in a corporate finance job. I didn't have to do anything like, I saw something different, and I got that bite in me, So that was where I first got the bug to be like, okay, there's something here.
So the complacency was your opening. Complacency doesn't change anything, is essentially the wisdom. And then you took us through the stories and painted a picture of a gentle, slower paced South, where there was time and space and community and capacity, but there weren't other people that were around you that had that focus, that had that determination, that had that grit or drive to make something different.
Right.
And they had probably very lovely lives. Yeah. And it just didn't resonate with your inner self. Your inner self was like, I want to experience something else. So you looked outside of yourself and you looked in magazines and you were like, okay, well, there must be something. And you took yourself to university, you met your darling, then you guys went to Philly, and in Philly, you were like, there it is.
Yeah.
This is the thing that I was called to come and find. Got it.
Yes.
And it sounds like you recognized it quite physically in your body.
And I didn't know what the thing was.
Yeah.
And this is where I found that I was a creative in Philly.
Mm.
So that's where the creative bug bit me. I'll say that. The creative entrepreneurial bug. It bit me while I was in Philly. And I know that's like a weird thing to say, but and also, again, this is where I'm also studying business more. I did minor in business while I was at LSU as well. But when I was living in Philly, I'm seeing more people, they're striving for their dreams. And everyone around me, like I said, they had this big dream mentality. The sky was not the limit. Like everyone they had a dream. And so it was in that time of living there, I was there for 4 years. I then started to see in myself, like, wow, I can be more than just the financial analyst, or I don't
Mm.
have to just work in corporate my whole life. Like, this doesn't have to be
Mm.
the plan that I'm on. I learned there I don't just need this strict 9 to 5 life.
Mm.
And so that right there was the eye opener for me. And that was traveling. So for one, getting outside of my comfort zone, getting outside of my small town, for one, opened my eyes up to something bigger, knowing there was something bigger out there, and that my small little self, that I could achieve it. So to see other people around me that look like me, that they could be, that I could be, something bigger.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing for me.
Representation matters. It
Yes.
matters. It's how you realize something is possible.
Yes.
Someone's gone ahead of you and
Mhm.
laid a trail, and it might not be your exact trail, and that's totally fine. But it's enough that you're like, oh, that's possible.
Yeah.
That's the thing that okay, so if I did my version of that, then maybe I also would have a pretty equal shot as that person.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting? So when I was in Philly, so I got my first. The first thing I started with, I went there. One thing I started, I learned dance. I went to a
Mhm.
dance class first of all, and this was an exciting time. I learned, and it was this sexual, very fun burlesque dancing, right? So this is how, and this is actually, it turns into my work today, actually. So this is kind of a backstory into the name Belle Rouge. The name, and these people will learn this about me the more I talk to them, but the name Belle Rouge came from my stage name, Miss Belle Rouge. So that used to be my burlesque dance name. Well, as a dancer at the time in Philadelphia, this is where Philly is very important to me and my backstory, I learned the art of, I can say I learned some business through dance as well. And as I left Philadelphia and I moved to Atlanta, because we came down here, started a family and all those things, I brought dance with me. And so I brought Belle Rouge in the name here, and I started teaching Belle Rouge dance here. And so I actually did that for about maybe a year or two before I picked up a camera. And I actually picked up a camera to record a dance tutorial because I'm like, well, I'm trying to expand outside of just teaching in a classroom. I bought a camera, a small little Canon 80D at the time. This was maybe like $700 camera at the time. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no knowledge at all about how to work the camera, but I said, I don't have a big budget, but I really want this tutorial so that I can create this DVD. And this was like in 2018-ish. So here I am going to sell a DVD. This is the hustler mentality in me, so that I can still reach my students back in Philly and Delaware and people in Louisiana, because I'm doing classes in South Carolina and I'm here and there. I'm like, well, how can I reach them without being there physically? So I'm going to sell this product, right? So I buy camera. I record this tutorial. I rent some spaces, and I get the project done. It's called Arch and Point. Awesome. My first and only project like that. So anyways, I have the camera, project is over. Well, now I have this camera. I purchased it, it's mine. And what am I going to do with it? Well, now the hustler mind that I had at the time, like, well, I need to make some money with this camera. And so I think, well, maybe I can get a few friends together. Let me do a few test shots. Actually I said, let me do a few free promo shoots, get a couple of people together, do some, what are these things called? Not really promo shoots, but like portfolio shoots, right? And I'm like, and I liked it. And my friends and my audience, like, you have an eye for this. I'm like, hey, maybe I do. And at the time, I'm like, I could do this. I've had a couple shoots done of my own at the time. Like, I can do this. I know what to do, and I can be affordable. There was a key word at the time. I can be affordable. Why not? Anybody could do it, and it's a easy barrier for entry. You pick up a camera, you go to Best Buy, get a camera, and you start shooting. But the key word here, anyone can pick up a camera and start shooting. It's the business side behind it. Is that it's that part, the people skills, the actual part of knowing how to run a business, the part that keeps you here 7+ years later. Now, when I started, I did not know what I was doing at all. Like I said, I picked up a camera and I was just doing the thing, and I was burnt out completely. I was booked and busy, as we call it here in Atlanta or wherever you are. Booked and busy, great, all the things. I'm like shooting on my lunch break, before work, after work, working a full-time corporate finance job as well. Working on the weekends. I'm doing all of this with a kid as well and a husband at home. And I'm working like maybe $200 shoots, but I'm booked and busy. But I'm making money, that's great. And then I realized that was not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable. I mean, it's nice to make money and be booked, but so what? Who's benefiting? Everybody else, but me, not my family, not myself, and who's suffering? I was suffering. So I got a photography coach. I had someone to actually teach me how to price myself, how to value the industry that I was in. Because at the time I was disrespecting it. I was being so disrespectful because for one, I wasn't understanding the work that everyone before me was putting in, because I thought it was cool to just be the next affordable photographer in my area, to be competitive.
So you learned a lot about photography, and it's led you to this beautiful book that is truly rendered me speechless. And you showed it to me off camera, which was
Yeah.
probably a good idea, because I had that funny feeling in my body that felt like I might make a sound that is not elegant. Because I had such emotion looking at the pictures. It was right behind my nose. It felt like I had an insight into a world that, being a white Australian woman, I know nothing about. And the pictures are so poignant. They tell such sisterhood and connection and resilience and power, these images, that I couldn't speak. I wonder, could you tell us a little bit about it? It's called Mums in Focus, but can you say the
Yeah.
American version of that, please?
Yes. So our project, Moms in Focus, the art of pushing through, is truly about the beauty, the resilience, the art of Black motherhood. And so many mothers go through, there's so much beauty in our motherhood here, because a lot of us may experience loss. There may be trauma in our childbirth here. I'm not sure if you're familiar with American birthing, but a lot of Black mothers may experience, we're more likely to have a C-section at birth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the highest in the world, actually. And myself, I've actually had 2 C-sections. And to myself, I thought it was almost normal until I read the statistics about it. And you're actually going to learn that a lot of the mothers in the book actually had emergency C-sections. And then you kind of start to wonder, well, how many of these actually had to be emergencies? So you start to learn just through the stories of other mothers, I'm not alone and I'm not by myself. And so there are stories here in this book. You hear a lot of happiness, you hear a lot of realness, you hear a lot of just raw emotion of women that just share their truths. You get to hear just great memories of maternal influences in their lives, as well as you get to hear some moms that talk about from the beginning, they knew they always wanted to be a mom. And you had some that just knew they never wanted to be a mom in their life, and then something happened to them, whether it was their partner, but something changed in them. And then now here they are, 3, 4 children in later, and they're the most proud they are. So we were able to take their stories and take their passions, and myself taking that artistic vision that I have, being able to create portraits that share their emotions, share their beauty, and to do it in a way it's timeless. It's very artistic, and I'm very, very proud of this project. And I'm so happy you were able to see it. And I was happy that I was able to see your raw emotion of this. You're going to have me crying up here today, first of all, but I'm going to keep it together.
Both of us will keep it together. I'm really curious about what it's like to be a Black mom in America.
I will say, and I'll share this from my own experience.
Okay.
When I went into labor here, I went into labor at 9 a.m. on a Friday morning, right? My water broke, and I'm thinking like, okay, I'll go, all right, my water broke. I don't know what to experience. It's my first time. And I went into the hospital, and I got checked in, and they're running all these tests, and everything seems to be okay. And they tell me, okay, you're 5 centimeters dilated. Okay. So then a couple hours pass. And then, they're running all the IVs. You get the epidural. Everything seems normal. It's a lot of pain. They're supposed to be numbing the pain or whatever, but it's still painful. I have a husband who works in medicine, so he's like, well, something doesn't seem right. Thankfully, I had a husband who advocates for me. So the day is passing. A nurse comes in. She's like, you're 8 centimeters. Like, okay. Couple hours pass again. They come back and they tell me you're 5 centimeters. I said, well, how in the heck? How can that be? Right?
Is that even
again,
possible?
Right. Tell me about it. So then, again, time is passing. He's like, she's still in too much pain. He's in the hallways, walking the halls. Somebody needs to get in here and check on my wife. So I don't know, a couple hours. I don't know if a couple hours had passed anymore, but he's adamant, somebody get in this room. So the doctors come in the room and they check on me, and they're telling me at this point my son is breached. He's stuck in the birth canal. I hadn't progressed. I never got to 8 centimeters. And at that time, I had been in labor for over 12 hours. They determined at some point, it's like, well, she's going to have an emergency C-section. And here at this point, I had been in pain for so long. And at this point, I'm relieved because I'm like, well, I just wanted the pain to stop. Please just get it. Just come on, let's get this over with, right? And thankfully, he kept pushing and pushing and pushing for someone to listen, because they kept saying, just give it time. She's gonna dilate some more. But thankfully, he was in the room with me, And I think here, a lot of Black mothers may not get as much attention when we say we're in pain, or we're not heard as well the first time when we say something is wrong. And you hear a lot of tragic stories in America about this, and it's a very sad situation. And I'm kind of happy we're bringing some of these stories to light in our project, because we are sharing real stories about a lot of birthing stories as well in this project. So it's not just beautiful pictures, it's actually real stories here that we're sharing too. So anyways, I did have a healthy birth at the end of that. And to be a little bit more honest, and this is something I learned very recently.
I'm your host, Meg Tuohey, and I'm thrilled to share that this podcast is brought to you by the transformative program, The Wisdom Lab. If you're feeling stuck in painful patterns, desperately seeking a breakthrough, and yearning for the tools to shatter emotional barriers and reclaim your power, the Wisdom Lab is your answer. In just 4 hours, you'll discover how to tap into your inner wisdom, turn confusion into clarity, and unlock the profound personal growth you've been craving. No more Band-Aid solutions or surface-level advice. This is about deep, lasting transformation from the inside out. Ready to embark on this life-changing journey? Head to the show notes for an exclusive link to learn more. Let's unleash your wisdom together.
So as I learned more about cesarean births, I thought that was the route I wanted anyways, right? Because I thought it was easier. I'm thinking, hey, just go ahead and cut them on out. I don't have to worry about the painful, And I'm thinking that was the easier route. But I just learned that children born from cesarean births, that they're more likely to have sensory disorders. And so my oldest, my son, he's very sensitive to like sounds and touch and like eating certain things and textures. For the longest, I just never knew what was wrong. And it took years and years for us to figure it out. And I never knew. The pediatricians, the doctors never really explained, or they would ask on questionnaires, but they never pointed it out, or they never said maybe because, or pointed back to the birth, to say that children born this way may be more susceptible to this. And for all this time, we're figuring it out or trying to like, why, And so, and I have my second daughter, my second child was born via C-section. We had no issues. Hers was scheduled. There was no traumatic, no stuck in a canal type of process. She's fine. But had I just been alerted or warned, things could have been a little different. Mm. But still 2 healthy children. No, we're doing great. But it's just the warnings, things you wish you would have known earlier or would have been explained better,
So it sounds systemic. If you've
Yes.
got a whole book talking about it, the statistics are there. It sounds like the health system doesn't acclimate or attune to the needs of a community. Is that a reasonable thing to say?
I would think so.
Okay. And so what I saw in your book, because we had some time together, are images of such connection and love and expansion. These women have such innate grace and beauty and power. Perhaps that is also a byproduct of having to, I'm looking for a word, not take, not demand, but give themselves permission to take up the space of that in their families and in their communities, because if they don't, there perhaps would be a void with the broader community not being attuned to this group of people. Am I in the right direction? Because I'm very conscious that I'm a white Australian woman.
We find ourselves having to advocate for ourselves a lot.
Yeah.
Especially so we live in the South here, and trying to make this all very political, but as Black women, we find ourselves working extremely hard, right? We may be some of the hardest working people in the room, but then we try not to be the most aggressive in the room because we try not to be labeled a certain way because of stigmas, right? So I'm sure if you've heard of the stigmas that we have, right?
I have.
So it's a line that we walk, and some of us walk it very unapologetically. And I'm so glad you're actually in Atlanta, because I hope there's a lot of things that you get to experience
I
here,
am.
and that you're getting open to.
Yeah.
But there's something that I've grown into, I can say, as I have grown as a woman, because in my earlier years, I was very shy and more politically correct about a lot of things, but I've owned them more today. But what I will say, I think we have to be a little less unapologetic these days, because these are our issues. And if no one else will stand up for them, who will? And so if we have to advocate more for ourselves, whether it's in birthing rooms or whether it's in the workplaces, then we have to do what we have to do. And so whether it's to get ourselves into higher leadership positions, to bring more of ourselves onto board of directors and X, Y, and Z, then that's what we have to do. And as you can see, I'm really big on helping women of color. I'm big on just helping women in general, but I'm really big on advocating for women that look like me, to help them to see that, yes, a woman like you can get to a place like this. You can be creative. Yeah. You can be just anything that you want to be. I want to set that example. And so that's one thing that I'm very passionate about. And I like for women to see, yes, you can do it too.
Yeah, I have a hypothesis I want to ask you about,
Yeah.
and it's a curious question.
Mm-hmm.
So I could be in the wrong direction, and please update me if I am. My husband and I were talking before I left to do this podcast tour, and we were talking about intergenerational family trauma and how it's not just the first generation that says it stops with me. My children aren't going to have what I had. That's not where the massive change lies, even though you would think that it is. It's actually when the children of those parents that decided that it stops with me, when they have children, those children get healthy grandparents. And so it's actually multi-generational change that it takes to turn the ship when you're talking about intergenerational trauma. And so as you're speaking about your great heart for this topic and your leadership in this space, I just wondered whether we're starting to get some real traction for the Black community because the next generation is coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And it does take those generations that keep adding more power, connection, healing at each level, that we then start to change the system from the bottom up. And that's what's on my mind. What do you think?
I actually agree with you.
You do?
Because if you think about, and I love the perspective of if it's our grandparents, right? So my grandmother was very strong-willed, and so is my mother, but I resonate a lot to my grandmother. I think she was just such this strong, hard-working woman, and I look up very much to her. She's no longer here, but oh my goodness, I just love that woman. But to think about the type of drive, no matter whatever she was doing, she never quit. And I think, and from what I can remember, how I was raised, like my mother, she was the baby and her siblings. And so my mom was like kind of babied. And I'm not, and I love my mom. This is not
we love
this is not that.
RaQuita's mom.
Right. This is not in a bad way. My mom is gonna watch this and like, RaQuita, what are you saying?
Nope, we love you.
This
it's not
is
that.
kind of I think I took up after my grandmother in a way of kind of like her spirit.
Yeah.
And in the way she did a lot of things.
Yeah.
And this is just me speaking solely from my perspective.
Yeah.
And I also can see a lot of the things that she instilled in me because my grandmother had a lot to do with my upbringing. So while my mother was working, my grandmother was raising me. So in my specific, the way I was raised, she raised me. So a lot of those values are instilled in me to this day. So, and I can see I'm passing those on to my children. And I can even see that even one day when my children probably have children, you know, that I'll be that person passing it on to their children. You know, my kids may perhaps be like, Mama don't know what she's talking about. You know, they can, you know how it goes, where they're going
Right.
to, you know how you do your parents, you know, it takes a while.
It does.
may take some years into getting up there and then you'd be like, okay, now I hear you, Mama.
Yeah.
So I really wholeheartedly, I agree. You guys are onto something with that.
So then let's count for a minute because I was trying to do it and I need to focus. Counting's not my specialty. But if we have your grandmother, then we have your mom, then we have you, then we have your kids, then we have your grandkids. When you get to be a grandma, that's 5 generations on from the type of life your grandmother had.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine what might be possible.
Yeah.
In those next 2 levels of leadership with the work that you're doing now, because you are leading from the front, you are telling important stories, you are capturing powerful imagery, and you are showing a community's current experience, but doing it through a lens that is truthful and authentic, but powerful and beautiful. Imagine what that legacy will be. And maybe it's unfathomable. Maybe we actually can't imagine it, but it feels big.
It feels unreal.
Yeah.
It feels unreal at the moment. I will say this. The first time I brought my son to a session of mine, he was maybe 3. Because for the longest, he would see I would leave the house, but he didn't know where I was going. He just knew Mommy was leaving because Mommy has to work. And when he first saw what I was doing, and he's like, oh, okay, now I'm seeing mommy's work. And now they kind of see the impact that I'm doing. And I can say, mommy took that picture. And they were like, oh, that's a nice picture. And then now they get on the other side of the camera, mommy, take my picture. And then they see it. And then they can see, oh, mommy takes nice pictures, you know? And so, and then now they're in the book too, by the way.
Are they? I
You
didn't get to that
You didn't
bit.
get to my part in the book.
All right,
Yeah.
let's do your part.
And I didn't, yeah,
Yeah,
we'll get into
that.
that.
We'll do that in a minute.
So just to see the work that that I'm doing, and that it's impactful, and that this is legacy. Like, I've always wanted to create something that would build legacy, but I've done it now. Like, it's here, and now I'm ready to see where it will go.
And I have to say, you're lovely and young. You've got like this very great long life ahead of you. And if you've made this at this point, I feel like anything is possible.
Well, thank you.
I have another question for you.
What's that?
So when we make something, we are delivering on like a dream. Okay. So you've delivered a dream, and that's like a summit. So you've reached the peak of the summit of making the thing. But the thing about humans is whenever we get to a summit, the very next thing that we want to do is the next great adventure. And so we never get it done. Our beautiful brains are always like, I am ready for the next thing. And when we set that goal, we set that intention, do you know that the very next thing that happens is the first of the probably many obstacles rises up that has to be worked through in order to become the person that has the next thing we dream of. So what are you working on, and what's the obstacle, and where are you at with the obstacle?
Oh, goodness gracious. What am I never working? Right now, so of course, this is the big thing at the moment. And I say that at the moment. However, this could very well be a volume 1 or series 1. Could be.
Why not?
It could be. We were talking off camera, you know, and I mentioned that this very well could be the start of something that could be growing into something much bigger. Because the work is so, and I must say, I think it is very, very, very well. I think I could definitely even see a volume 2 coming of this. And outside of this, I have my agency that I'm growing as well. So
yes,
Flair House Creative Agency is growing. So there's always something that I'm working on. So I'm never not working over here. But yes, I'm really excited to see what's in the path for Moms in Focus, the art of pushing through. So we shall see.
Okay, but here's the thing. We want to know the hard thing you're working on. We want the nitty gritty on the thing that's hard, and we want to know how you're working through it, because that's actually the part that matters, because all of us get stuck in the things we're trying to grow. Teach us.
Okay, so in the hard parts of it, I'll tell you this. So for the most part, I'm a solopreneur, okay? And most things that I do, I am the creative. So this is where it gets hard for me. Is the hardest part of it all is to figure out what parts to delegate away. Delegation is the part for me that, yes, I can delegate, but it's like, but what if it gets messed up? Or I could have done it better the first time. And that's where I struggle, like holding things close to chest, right? And that is the one area this year that I'm working on myself the most with, is to growing my team, like growing a team to say operationally, in order for your businesses to grow outside of you as a job, right? Basically. So instead of, and I saw a quote about this recently too, and like, RaQuita, you're running, instead of like a 9 to 5, instead of you being a business, because I have multiple businesses, multiple LLCs, but most of them would not operate without me. So therefore, they are jobs. These are jobs within my name for the most part, right? That is where, that is where it all can go ship tanks if I get sick, if anything happens to me. lo and behold, there's an emergency. What happens if I am unavailable? Which we know this is like catastrophe 101. It all relies on me. So that is the hard part, right? And especially in a creative space. And I've had several younger photographers, and I've even had I had a high schooler reach out to me and they want to learn from me. And I've had people, photography college students reach out and they want to shadow me and intern with me. So I'm like, RaQuita, you need to figure out, get the systems, the processes in place to allow people to come in and actually be able to learn from you, to either grow with you or help you grow. So that's the hard part that I'm working on, is being able to open myself up to help, but also just being wise about it. Because it's one thing to take help, but you have to, it's a weird thing about getting help. And it only because I've come from a place I've seen, and I'm not comparing people are scammers and they're coming in and just trying to learn everything and take everything and run. But you have to be smart about how much to give and how much to teach, or you only what areas to teach. And, so that is where I'm at. That is what I'm working on, is how to strategically figure out what part to give or to outsource, to delegate, to, that's where I'm at.
Oh, I love that, because it is a transition from a solopreneur to running a company, and building the infrastructure and systems that go with that is like a whole thing. And it is a real build. And we can see you've got the creative, we can see you've got the vision. So that's not the part to focus on. The part is to build the structure that allows that to expand.
Right.
Oh, I love that for you.
Yes, that's where we are.
Yeah, well, that's great.
So like all the pieces are there. I just need the people. I need the right people.
Yes.
Or the structure, to your point.
Yeah.
The right infrastructure to make this thing boom.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's probably just, what do they say? 1 foot from gold.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a golden statement.
Yeah. I did not make it up. That is not mine.
That's a good one.
Not mine. The other thing, the advice I got when I was starting my company was the very first position is a virtual assistant.
See, and that's one person I've hired, and that's one person like I hire and then I let go, because then, well, it just becomes like when work is slow and then like, I don't have much for you to do. It's in seasons, right?
So seasonal,
and in those times, maybe things did just get slow and like, well, it's expense I don't need at the time, but now things have ramped up and now I need you back. So let me go back and go get them.
Yeah, maybe go get them.
Yeah.
I like that.
No, you're right.
Well, that worked for me and for a lot of other people that I know. That was always the first piece of advice.
I need to go get them back.
Yeah, go get them back. Quick sticks.
Yeah.
That's what we say. Hurry up, quick sticks. All right, love. Well, here we are towards the end of our conversation. It has been such a joy to get to know you. I'm really curious if you and I, because we've had some time together, which we were lucky, I think, to have. And now we're pretty good friends. Yes. So we'll just pretend metaphorically that we don't have to sit here with the mics, that we can now kick off our shoes, put on our slippers, put on some comfy clothes. You can have between 1 and 6 different types of drinks. I'm going to have quite a few myself, as in like sparkling water. You can have a glass of wine if you want, hot chocolate, I don't mind. And we're going to take those out to the metaphorical patio where it's a perfect evening and there's no bugs. And it's a nice sunset, it's great light. And we've got a comfy patio chair, and there's one for you and there's one for me. I'm putting my feet up on the table and no one minds. And there's space for our listeners to join us. And so we've got this community, we all feel connected. We feel seen and heard and understood and at ease with each other, like we can trust each other. And it's that time just before we might separate and head to bed. It's just that last piece of a wonderful night. What would you like to leave us with? What piece of wisdom or advice might you like to share now that we're all settled in?
Don't rush your journey. Take your time. And don't quit whatever it is that you're working on, don't stop. Because just because the thing you're working on, it may not pop or it may not sell, it doesn't mean that it won't work. It may not be the thing, but the thing may be coming.
Mm.
Yes.
And oftentimes you've got to build it so that you can then see it.
Absolutely.
So that then you can refine it. Like if we look at your book, you had to learn how to do the layout. You had to learn how to color match and block and think about that from a big picture perspective.
Oh.
Like we look at all of those pieces that came to make this.
Yes.
So when you think about book 2, you already have that foundation, but you can't make a book 2 without a book 1. And book 1 doesn't have to be like the be all and end all, although it might be because it's very good. But you have to have a book 1.
Yeah.
If you ever want to have a book 2. So you actually got to make it. You got to make the
Absolutely.
thing. So don't stop. Keep making the thing, whatever the thing is.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I would love for you, if you are in the audience and you're watching this, when this drops, you can go, if you don't mind, shameless plug here, you can go to momsinfocusproject.com and you can purchase your own copy of the Moms in Focus coffee table book. It, as Megan has mentioned, this is a beautiful piece of art. The stories in here, this is something here that you can really sit and dive into, and you'll love it. You'll absolutely love it.
And we just learned that you're in it, which we didn't know because we didn't get to when we were off camera. So that's going to be the first thing I do when we close here is look at that. Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us. It has been such a joy. And thank you for taking us into those deeper topics, which can be a bit fraught at times. We might feel a little nerve-wracking, but we did such good conversations that are so important. And I just am so grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Megan, for having me.
I'd like to thank RaQuita Weathers for joining me today on Wisdom Stripes. In this episode, we explored her creative journey, her personal journey, the wisdom behind visual storytelling, and the perseverance it takes to build something meaningful as both a mother and an entrepreneur. If you loved this conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a drop of wisdom. You can connect with RaQuita by visiting bellerougephotography.com and follow her on Instagram at bellerougephotography. And to stay connected with me, follow at Meg Tuohey Official on Instagram. Thank you for listening to another episode of Wisdom Stripes. I hope you gained a little wisdom today. My name is Meg Tuohey, and this is Wisdom Stripes. Thank you for listening to this episode of Wisdom Stripes. Follow me on at Meg Tuohey Official and leave a comment and review. I'm looking forward to meeting you here next time on Wisdom Stripes.